I always thought loyalty counted for something. That if you worked hard, stayed late when needed, met your deadlines, and showed up for people when they were struggling, they'd return the favor when it was your turn to need a little grace. Turns out I was wrong. I had been working at Whitmore Consulting for almost 5 years. It wasn't the biggest firm or the flashiest, but it was solid. We had a handful of big clients, law firms, marketing agencies, medical practices, and I was proud of the relationships I built with them. Clients trusted me. My numbers were strong. Hell, I was even training some of the newer recruits in my spare time, unpaid, of course, because that's just what team players do. Then my mom got sick. It happened fast. One day she was complaining about a headache, and the next she was in the hospital with doctors using words like tumor and aggressive and months maybe. It knocked the air right out of me. When I told my manager, Rachel, about needing to take some family leave, she was all smiles and sympathetic head tilts. She told me not to worry, to take care of myself, that family always comes first. I believed her. I submitted the paperwork, packed up my desk with shaking hands, and tried to convince myself it would all be okay, that my work would be waiting when I got back, that I mattered enough to them to be treated fairly. I spent the next 2 months living at the hospital, basically, sleeping in chairs, eating bad vending machine food, holding my mom's hand through the worst moments of both of our lives. I barely thought about work. Didn't check emails. Didn't worry about the projects I left behind. For once, I wasn't the overachiever, the fixer, the person everyone dumped their problems onto. I was just a son trying not to lose his mother. And then one day she was gone. Just like that. A whisper out of the world. It's hard to explain how grief feels. It's not just sadness, it's emptiness. It's waking up in the middle of the night reaching for a person who isn't there. It's seeing a funny commercial and instinctively thinking, Mom would have laughed at that, before the realization guts you all over again. But eventually, life keeps moving whether you're ready or not. A few weeks after the funeral, I forced myself to shower, put on a pressed shirt, and walk back into Whitmore Consulting. I needed normalcy. I needed to feel like I still belonged somewhere, anywhere. Everyone greeted me with awkward smiles and half-hearted hugs. It felt like they were scared to touch me too much, like grief might be contagious. Rachel pulled me into her office. I thought it would be to welcome me back, to ease me into things, maybe even to thank me for coming back so quickly. Instead, she sat stiffly behind her desk, cleared her throat, and said, "We made some changes while you were gone." Changes? Such a neat, clinical word for what she was about to say. "We had to redistribute some accounts," she continued, flipping through papers like she couldn't even look at me. "It was a business decision, not personal." She slid a new contract across the desk. Demotion. Plain and simple. Lower title. Lower salary. Smaller clients. Less responsibility. I just sat there staring at it, feeling like my body wasn't even mine anymore. "Is this because I left?" I heard myself ask, my voice surprisingly steady. Rachel gave that tight corporate smile, the one that says we both know exactly what's happening, but I'm going to pretend it's fine so you can't sue me. "We needed to adjust," she said, shrugging helplessly. I picked up the pen, held it, put it back down. In that moment, something inside me snapped. They hadn't just kicked me while I was down. They had waited until I was at my absolute weakest to shove me into a hole and start burying me. I stood up without a word, left the paper unsigned, and walked out. The rage didn't hit me until I was halfway home. It wasn't the grief that fueled it anymore. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was the realization that they had underestimated me. They thought I'd take it. That I'd be grateful just to have a seat at the table, even if it was the kids' table now. They thought they could slap me down and I'd still beg for scraps. They didn't realize they had just created their worst nightmare. Because I wasn't going to fight for scraps. I was going to take the whole damn feast. Starting with their clients. The first few days after walking out of that office were the hardest. I wasn't used to sitting still. I wasn't used to feeling powerless. For the first time in years, I didn't have a job title to hide behind, no endless list of deadlines to numb me, no identity anchored to a company logo. It was just me, raw, wounded, furious. But the thing about hitting rock bottom is, it strips away all the noise. It forces you to listen. And what I heard loud and clear was a voice in my head whispering, "They need you more than you need them." Because it was true. I wasn't some replaceable office drone. I was the one clients called when they didn't trust the junior associates. I was the one who salvaged projects when someone else dropped the ball. I was the one who stayed until midnight fixing mistakes Rachel didn't even know existed. Clients didn't stay with Whitmore Consulting because they loved the brand. They stayed because they trusted me. And the company had just ripped that trust apart by shoving me into a smaller box and expecting me to be grateful. Fine. If they wanted to pretend I didn't matter, I was going to show them exactly how wrong they were. The plan started simple. I spent 2 straight days combing through my old emails, texts, LinkedIn connections. Anywhere and everywhere I had documented proof of relationships with my former clients. Not confidential information, I wasn't stupid. Just casual touches. Birthday emails. Notes congratulating them on promotions. Updates after successful campaigns. All the little human things that make clients stay loyal, things Whitmore took for granted. Next, I made a list. Top 10 clients I knew were attached to me personally, the ones who had said things like, "You're the only reason we're still here," during late-night project calls. The ones who had confided frustrations with billing issues, miscommunications, broken promises. People who already had one foot out the door, they just didn't realize it yet. I wasn't going to poach them. Not directly. No, I was going to do it smarter. First, I updated my LinkedIn profile. No bitterness, no drama, just a clean announcement. After 5 amazing years honing my skills at Whitmore Consulting, I'm excited to take on new opportunities as an independent consultant, focused on helping businesses achieve authentic, sustainable growth. Professional, respectful, but loaded. Then I waited. It didn't take long. The first message came within a day. "Hey, just saw your update, congrats, are you taking on clients? Would love to grab coffee sometime." Bingo. It was from one of my biggest accounts, a law firm that easily brought in 6 figures to Whitmore every year. I kept my reply short and friendly. "Would love to chat, let's set something up." I didn't chase. Didn't sell myself. I let them come to me. Because deep down I knew what Whitmore still didn't. People don't stay loyal to logos, they stay loyal to people who show up for them. One by one, the messages trickled in. A marketing director I had saved from a disastrous product launch. A healthcare executive whose chaotic office I had spent weeks calming down. A tech startup founder who once told me, half joking, that I was the only person who actually listened. I set up meetings, casual low-pressure coffee catch-ups. No pitches. No begging. I just listened. And every time, without fail, the story was the same. They felt lost without me. Frustrated with new reps. Worried about being treated like numbers instead of partners. I didn't have to convince them. They were already halfway out the door, I just opened it a little wider. Meanwhile, Whitmore had no idea what was brewing. They were too busy celebrating their restructuring. Too busy patting themselves on the back for trimming the fat, not realizing they had cut out one of their main arteries. And I was just getting started. Because planting seeds was one thing. Watching them bloom while everything they thought was secure started to crumble would be the real satisfaction. I wasn't just coming back stronger. I was going to leave them wishing they had never underestimated me in the first place. It happened faster than even I expected. It was a Wednesday, rainy, gray, the kind of day that makes everything feel slower, heavier, when I got the call that changed everything. I was sitting at my kitchen table, laptop open, pretending to tweak my website again even though I knew it already looked fine. I wasn't fooling myself, I was anxious, waiting for something to happen, waiting to know that all this planning and patience was actually going to pay off. And then my phone buzzed. It was Erica, one of the senior partners from that big law firm I'd listed at the top of my target list. I stared at the screen for a second, my heart hammering against my ribs. "This was it," I answered, trying to sound calm even though adrenaline was flooding my veins. "Hey, how's everything going?" I said, keeping my voice light. Erica didn't waste time. She never did. It's one of the reasons we worked so well together in the first place. "I'll be blunt," she said. "We're not happy with the transition Whitmore promised after you left. It's been sloppy, slow, and frankly insulting. We don't want to keep gambling with our business." I stayed silent, letting her fill the space. "We were wondering," she continued, her voice shifting into something softer, more cautious. "Are you officially taking clients? We'd like to move our account if you're available." I almost laughed right then and there. After everything, after being demoted, after being treated like some replaceable cog, here was a six-figure client practically begging to follow me out the door. But I didn't laugh. I didn't gloat. Instead, I took a slow breath, smiled into the phone, and said, "I'd be honored to work with you again." We talked details. I laid out my rates, slightly lower than Whitmore, but still more than enough to keep me comfortable. I didn't offer discounts. I didn't overpromise. I treated it like a partnership, professional, clean, confident. By the time we hung up, the contract was halfway to my inbox. I leaned back in my chair, staring up at the ceiling, feeling a grin stretch across my face. It had started. The first domino had fallen. And once one client left, I knew others would follow. The thing about business, real business, is that people talk. Especially when they're unhappy. Especially when someone gives them a better way out. Sure enough, within 2 days of Erica's firm officially moving their account to me, I got a text from another old client, the marketing agency I had saved from a botched campaign the year before. "Heard you're independent now, we should talk." Another meeting. Another client quietly packing their bags from Whitmore and walking straight into my hands. I didn't even have to twist their arms. Whitmore had made my job easy by underestimating the relationships I had built, thinking they were only paying for deliverables, not realizing the real value was trust. Meanwhile, through the grapevine, I started hearing whispers about what was happening back at the firm. Rachel had called an emergency meeting with the senior staff. There were emails flying around about client retention strategies and urgent quality assurance measures. Panic was setting in. They were trying to plug holes in a sinking ship, and they didn't even realize the iceberg wasn't an accident. I was the iceberg. And I was still coming. For the first time in months, I felt truly alive. Not because of the money. Not because of the petty satisfaction of revenge. But because I realized I had finally taken back control of my own life. I wasn't asking for permission anymore. I wasn't begging for scraps from a table I helped build. I was building my own damn table. And pretty soon, Whitmore would have no choice but to look around their crumbling kingdom and realize who really held the power all along. By the end of the month, it was impossible for Whitmore to hide what was happening. The cracks weren't cracks anymore, they were gaping holes, swallowing everything in their path. I didn't even have to lift a finger. The clients were doing the work for me. Word had spread faster than wildfire. One client would leave, and before Whitmore even had a chance to recover, another would send their termination of services notice. Another meeting would get canceled. Another longtime partner would suddenly stop answering their emails. One by one, like dominoes tipping into each other, they were falling. And the best part, every client that left didn't just disappear quietly. They talked to vendors, to other businesses, to anyone who asked, "Hey, weren't you working with Whitmore?" The story was always the same. We followed my name instead. Meanwhile, my inbox was overflowing. Referrals, inquiries, offers. It got to the point where I had to start turning people away, not because I didn't want the business, but because I refused to make the same mistake Whitmore had, treating people like numbers instead of relationships. I kept my client list small but loyal. Each one got my full attention. Each one knew that they mattered. And that simple difference, that human difference, was all it took. One afternoon, a former coworker, Jenna, texted me out of the blue. "Have you heard what's happening? Rachel's freaking out. They had to cut 2 junior staff already, more cuts coming." I just stared at the message for a long time, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. I didn't hate the junior staff. They were just collateral damage, caught in the same machine that had tried to chew me up and spit me out. But Rachel had made her bed. She had decided that trimming dead weight me was smart business. And now she was watching her empire collapse from the inside, all because she didn't understand that loyalty isn't something you buy. It's something you earn. Another text came a few days later from someone even higher up, an old mentor who had left Whitmore just before things got bad. "You really lit a fire under them, never seen anything like it. You should be proud." Proud wasn't even the right word. I felt free. For the first time, I wasn't chained to someone else's decisions. I wasn't at the mercy of someone else's bad calls or petty power plays. I had built something out of the ashes they left behind. Something real. Something better. And Whitmore. They had nothing but ashes left. The final blow came on a rainy Thursday, fitting, considering how this all began. I got an email from Erica, the senior partner at the law firm that had been the first to jump ship. "FYI, we just heard from an old contact at Whitmore. They reached out trying to win us back, offered a major discount, sounded desperate." She ended the email with a laughing emoji, the professional version of a mic drop. I leaned back in my chair, laughing out loud for the first time in days. Desperate. Scrambling. Trying to patch leaks in a ship they had sunk with their own arrogance. And here I was, sitting in my tiny home office, a fresh cup of coffee in hand, more successful than I had ever been inside their glass walls. It wasn't just about the revenge anymore. It wasn't about proving a point to them. It was about proving a point to myself. I wasn't small. I wasn't replaceable. I wasn't lucky to be tolerated. I was valuable because I showed up when it mattered, because I treated people like people, not transactions. And no matter how much they discounted their services or scrambled to patch their bleeding client list, they could never rebuild what they had so carelessly destroyed. Because loyalty, once broken, doesn't come back. It grows roots somewhere else. Somewhere better. Somewhere it's actually earned. And Whitmore. They were just a ghost now, a lesson in how fast a tower can fall when you kick out the very people holding it up. I always imagined, if the day ever came when someone like Rachel would have to swallow her pride and come crawling back, it would feel triumphant. Like I'd throw a party, pop a bottle of champagne, dance around my living room. But when it actually happened, it didn't feel like that at all. It felt sad. Predictable. I got the email on a Monday morning, just as I was sitting down to plan out my week. Subject line: opportunity to reconnect. I almost laughed at how corporate even her desperation sounded. Curious, I clicked it open. The message was long, too long. The kind of email you only write when you're trying way too hard to pretend you're in control. She started by congratulating me on branching out independently and building strong client relationships. As if she hadn't tried to bury me just a few months earlier. Then came the real reason for the email. Whitmore was restructuring again. They were looking to expand partnerships with proven consultants. They were interested in exploring ways to collaborate moving forward. In short, they wanted me back. But not as an employee this time. As a contractor. Someone they could pay per project, no benefits, no loyalty, just another vendor to toss scraps to when they needed. It was almost funny. They had demoted me thinking they could do better without me. Now here they were, begging for a piece of the success they had thrown away. I sat back in my chair, tapping the edge of my coffee mug, thinking about how to respond. Part of me wanted to write something scathing. to tear into them the way they had torn into me, with fake smiles and careful words hiding knives. But I realized pretty quickly, they weren't worth that much of my time. If I was going to respond, it would be on my terms. So I kept it simple. Hi, Rachel. Thanks for reaching out. I'm flattered by the offer. At this time, I'm fully committed to projects that align with my long-term vision and client values. Wishing you and the Whitmore team the best as you navigate this transition. Best. My name. Polite. Professional. Completely closed. No openings for negotiation. No crumbs of hope. Just a clear message. I've moved on. I hit send without a second thought and leaned back, feeling a calm satisfaction settle over me. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. But it was final. And it was everything I needed. Over the next few weeks, I heard through the grapevine that things kept spiraling at Whitmore. More clients left. More staff jumped ship. The reputation they had spent years carefully building was crumbling faster than they could rebuild it. They tried slashing prices, offering desperate promotions, running flashy ad campaigns. None of it worked. Because once trust is broken, you can't buy it back. Meanwhile, my business kept growing not just in size but in strength. The clients I had weren't just customers, they were relationships. People who recommended me to their friends, their networks, because they knew I was reliable, because they knew I actually cared. And there's no price tag for that kind of loyalty. Looking back now, it's almost funny how scared I was the day they demoted me. How small they made me feel. How much I believed, even for a moment, that their decision defined my worth. They didn't destroy me. They set me free. And when Rachel reached out, when she finally had to taste a tiny fraction of the helplessness she had served me, I didn't need to crush her. I just needed to show her what it looked like when someone you underestimated outgrew you completely. Not with anger. Not with vengeance. Just with success. The kind that speaks louder than any words ever could. It's funny how, when you finally stop chasing approval from the wrong people, the right people seem to find you naturally. After Rachel's email, after I made it clear that door was permanently closed, it felt like a massive weight lifted off my chest. I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. I wasn't wasting time wondering what if. I was moving forward full speed ahead. And life started opening up in ways I had never imagined. The handful of clients who had followed me at first had now multiplied into a steady, reliable roster. Big enough that I was turning work away every week. Small enough that I could still give each client the personal attention they deserved, something Whitmore never understood. But I wasn't just freelancing anymore. I was building. It started with a simple idea. If I was already doing this much work solo, why not start bringing other people on board? Not to build another soulless agency like the one that had thrown me away, but to build something better. Smarter. Kinder. I wanted to create a team where people felt valued, where no one got blindsided by betrayal because someone higher up wanted to restructure. So I hired my first contractor, a graphic designer I had met through a client referral. She was sharp, fast, and just as passionate about delivering great work without all the corporate nonsense. Then came a copywriter, a web developer, a social media strategist. All independent contractors like me, all people tired of being treated like cogs in a machine. We weren't trying to scale into some giant operation. We were building something small, strong, and honest. A real partnership. I called it Forge Consulting, a name that meant something to me. Because it wasn't just about helping clients. It was about forging something new out of all the broken pieces Whitmore had left behind. Forge became my full-time reality within 6 months. Clients loved it, the personalized service, the flexibility, the way we actually listened instead of pushing cookie-cutter solutions down their throats. We built brands. We rebuilt reputations. We helped startups look like powerhouses and helped local businesses punch above their weight. And we did it all without the backstabbing politics, the fake smiles, the endless ladder-climbing nonsense that had defined so much of my life before. The money was good, better than I'd ever made sitting in some gray cubicle grinding out work for people who didn't know my middle name. But the freedom was priceless. I set my own hours, picked my own projects, took afternoons off just because I wanted to sit in a coffee shop and read a book. And more importantly, I built a reputation. Not for being the fastest or the cheapest, but for being real. For showing up when it mattered. For caring about the success of the people I worked with, not just the paycheck. Sometimes, late at night, I'd find myself thinking about the day they demoted me. The way Rachel had slid that new contract across the desk without even looking me in the eye. The way they had expected me to fold, to smile politely, to shrink myself smaller and smaller until I disappeared completely. And I would smile. Because in trying to box me in, they had accidentally lit a fire they could never put out. They had pushed me to become someone they never would have allowed me to be inside their walls. And now here I was, not just surviving. Thriving. Running my own company. Leading a team of talented people who actually liked their work. Helping businesses grow in ways that felt authentic and human. All while Whitmore faded into the background, just another cautionary tale about what happens when you treat people like they're disposable. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had something so much better. I had a life that was completely, utterly, unapologetically mine. And no one's, not Rachel, not Whitmore, not anyone could ever take that away again. It's strange, looking back now, to realize how much of my old life was built around apology. Apologizing for taking up space. For having opinions. For needing a break. For not fitting neatly into someone else's plan. At Whitmore, I apologized without even thinking about it. Apologized when a client was unreasonable. Apologized when a deadline was impossible. Apologized when I dared to believe I deserved better. It's only when you step away, when you finally reclaim your life, that you see how much of yourself you had slowly chipped away, piece by piece, just to keep the peace. I don't apologize anymore. Not for my ambition. Not for setting boundaries. Not for choosing who gets access to my energy and who doesn't. Building Forge Consulting wasn't just about making a living. It was about making a statement. I would never again let someone else define my value. And the best part, the life I was building, the life that once felt impossible, unreachable, wasn't some fantasy. It was real. The kind of real that looked like slow mornings with coffee on the balcony instead of rushing out the door to beat traffic. The kind of real that meant picking and choosing clients based on mutual respect, not desperation. The kind of real that meant spending Sunday afternoons with people who genuinely cared about me, no hidden agendas, no keeping score. Freedom didn't come in a lightning bolt. It came in small moments. The first time I said no without guilt. The first time I raised my rates and didn't flinch. The first time a client thanked me, really thanked me, not just for the work, but for treating their business like it mattered. It was in those moments I realized. This is success. Not the title. Not the paycheck. Not the approval of people who would throw you away the second it became convenient. Success was choosing myself. Every damn day. As for Whitmore, they kept spiraling. Last I heard, Rachel stepped down, which, in corporate speak, meant she got pushed out the door before she could be fired. The company was bought out by a bigger firm, one that had no loyalty to the old leadership. Most of the junior staff scattered, finding better jobs at companies that actually valued them. Whitmore wasn't even a name people remembered anymore. Just a warning story passed around LinkedIn posts and networking events. Good. It deserved to fade. Because when you build something on the backs of people you refuse to respect, it's only a matter of time before the whole house of cards falls. And me. I didn't need to dance on the ashes. I didn't need to send smug emails or post victory rants. My life was my answer. My peace was my power. I built something lasting not because I was smarter or luckier or better, but because I refused to be small anymore. Because I refused to live a life where I apologized for existing. Sometimes people ask me now, would you ever go back to corporate? I just smile. Not because it's a ridiculous question, but because it reminds me of how far I've come. I don't belong in someone else's box. I don't belong in someone else's chain of command. I belong to myself. No titles. No glass ceilings. No apologies. Just me forging my own future, one choice at a time. And if I had to lose everything to find that version of myself, it was worth every second.